Well, it says waiting. Oh, there it goes.
What says what?
Nothing.
I haven't turned on the mic yet.
So yeah, we have to cross that.
Right. Right. Do you want an introduction?
Certainly. However you would like to do this.
People just been introducing themselves if they want, and it's what?
I can introduce myself if you
Sure.
like, however you see fit.
I don't need to be on there, honestly.
Yeah.
No, I'm good. Do you want to project or do you want the microphone?
What is a project? What do you mean?
Your voice?
Yeah, I can project. I can talk loud. Is it going to go into the camera and into the Zoom?
Yeah, the camera's going to pick you up, no problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll test. If people can't hear me well,
Yeah.
then I'll grab the microphone and happy to do that.
Yeah. With our last presentation, we got a little bit of feedback on the video, so.
Yeah, and I'm always careful about that just because Zoom is a little bit testy, you know?
Oh, yeah. Well, it's YouTube, so.
Well, YouTube too. So
Oh, it's testy, yes. It is.
I always have a tendency to check on all of that.
We've
Especially.
got 4 people watching now.
Oh, cool. So, looks like people are still coming in, so we'll get started after they get a chance to sit down. I think.
Sure.
Absolutely.
So that's loud.
So do things look good on your end?
They do. Yeah, it's delayed by 30 seconds. Because that's how I set it up.
You
I
set
set
it up
for
with
a 30-second delay.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're
Now, to turn the microphone off, just
Yeah.
push
At
and
the
hold the button at the bottom.
Okay, cool.
got it.
We'll do that. That's too much.
All right.
If it's off, does it still pick up on the camera?
Yeah, the camera's independent.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Excellent.
It's ice cream. Yeah, and I didn't know there were cupcakes.
Yeah, please take some. It's I forgot it was my birthday.
Oh, happy
I
birthday.
did.
You're not that old.
No, I've been running a mile a minute and it's been crazy. But my sister came in with a bunch of cupcakes and I'm like, oh boy. But this is all to your guys' benefit because I don't need them. So please eat them.
I'll go get one now.
Yeah, we'll get started as soon as everybody's situated. So you're good.
I don't want to get any feedback. Can you tell if the volume can work?
It depends on what you're hearing through your speakers.
I have my speakers blocked.
What do you mean blocked?
We're good.
Are you sure? What did you hear?
What you
now?
just said.
Okay. We want to do it again, but I want to hear him because I'm closer to the mic. Okay?
Fine.
Will you say something?
Testing, 1, 2, 3. And that's without the microphone. Sound good? All right. Okay, we might be good without the mic then. Yeah. Okay. I'm an Italian fella, so we should be able to
Okay.
project a bit. So, but if any of you guys in the back can't hear me well, tell me and I'll switch over to the mic. Okay?
It's not that far back.
Now I was gonna say, don't hesitate. I can project it. We'll see.
So far, so good.
Good. I'm glad to hear it.
I used to do a lot of speeches.
Now, if you like, whenever we get to the question and answer part, I can run around with the mic to give it to them.
That would be lovely. I like that idea a lot, actually.
I thought
You want to take that? Thanks, sir.
I'm just trying to see if it's delayed here, so we're good. All right. All right.
Now, you don't have to monitor the chat. I'll be doing that. You can.
No. Just get some questions.
It's a production. Yeah, I know.
All right. I think we're good. Are you guys all situated, ready to go?
Yep.
Okay. Does Denise want to come down? I'm not sure.
She usually stands by the door for a little while in case other people come in. Yeah.
All right. All right, everybody. I'm going to get started about 30 seconds, and then we'll kind of go from there.
Good idea.
There we go. All right, we should be good. All right, thanks for coming, guys. I appreciate you, and not see me especially. My name is PJ Herrera. I've lived in Kent all my life. Not only that, my family is from the hills of West Virginia. My dad's side of the family is all from Western PA. And my summers were spent in West Virginia and Pennsylvania, spending time with family and such like that. So I have a good breadth of knowledge when it comes to different communication styles for different areas that you're in. When you are going out and knocking on doors, that sort of thing, that's kind of where my area of expertise lies. I'm going to give you a little bit more of a bio for me. I started as a door knocker back when I was in high school at Kent Roosevelt High School. And I thought that that was just part of being a citizen, right? You are an American citizen, you pledge allegiance to the flag every day, and you have to have some sort of civic engagement. And that's one of the things that, that's what we did. I thought, I'd find people that aligned with my values, and I'd go out and knock on doors for them. So at the time, I knocked on doors for Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, people back then, and I just did that. Then we had the 2016 election, where Donald Trump got elected the first time. And I gave him a chance. I did. I did not vote for him by any means, but I was like, okay, it's something different. I'll give him 6 months. I'll keep my mouth shut and see what happens. And that lasted less than 3. And I could not. I just couldn't. You got up in the morning and you didn't know what the heck was going on, and it was just antithetical to not only my values, but the values I was brought up with. So what I did was I went down to the Portage County Young Democrats. And I said, hey guys, how you doing? And they said, oh, hey, you're the door knocking guy. And I was like, no. I'm the guy that's going to do whatever the heck you want me to do in order to get things done. So that's kind of where I got my start in organizing and activism. So when I started that was 2017, at the beginning of 2017, I got started with the Young Democrats of America locally. So I helped out with Portage County races and stuff like that. I went with Portage County Young Dems to the delegation in New York at the time for the Young Democrats of America conference, where I knew that they had a constituency caucus that was called the Rural Caucus. And something that I've known for a very long time, and something that I've felt for a very long time, is that the Democratic Party has not done a lot for folks in rural areas that they used to do back in the day. The lack of investment in said areas has resulted in a red wave that we have seen in Portage County and in other counties just like it across the board. And I have been taking this as my opportunity is I look at it and I say, okay, boy, somebody should really do something about that. You look at something and it's broken, And I think it's a moment of personal growth when you arrive at the point where you're like, well, I'm somebody. I can try and do something about it. It doesn't seem like anybody's doing it the way I would do it, so I want to pitch in and do my part. So in New York in 2017, I started out by going to the Rural Caucus, and the funniest story, part of this, is there's a good story at the end of this, is that I got pulled into the Rural Caucus room because they came out of in the hallway. It was hosted in a university, so they came out of this little classroom and they said, "What state are you from?" And I said, "Well, I'm from Ohio." And they said, "Good, we don't have that one." Grabbed my arm and yanked me in. And I was like, "What is going on?" And they said, "Well, we need 10 states to have quorum." And I was like, we just scrounged, this is what we were doing. And I was like, okay. So I sat down at this convention with a small classroom full of people that had on their mind rural organizing at their heart. And it was a smaller classroom. And it wasn't as big as I thought it should be, right? So that was my start in the Rural Caucus and the Young Democrats of America. And I started helping out, little by little. I did most of my stuff in Portage County, but they knew I was available and I would hop on calls, do what I could. And I used it as a vehicle to learn as much as I could on how to get out the vote in areas that haven't been touched by Democratic Party in a long time. And it served its purpose. It wasn't it could have been better. So at that time, so we kind of rolled with it. From 2017 to about 4 years ago, I helped out as much as I could. And 4 years ago, I had the outgoing chair, my friend Caleb, elected his replacement chair and got off the dais. And then the new chair started the elections for the rest of the board. This is important because he came down, sat down behind me, tapped me on the shoulder, and said, "Hey, I'm gonna apologize for what I'm about to do." And I said, "What?" What? And he got up when they called the election for treasurer and said, "I nominate PJ Rare of Ohio to be treasurer." And everybody's like, "Oh, hey, we like that guy. He's been a volunteer for a good bit." And then I was voted in by acclamation. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, "Hey, what?" So
You could have said no.
I could have. But again, that little point right there where I'm sitting there, I'm like, well, I have been saying we need to be doing more for a long time. Well, maybe this is my way to help out. And it was. I started out with the executive board of the Rural Caucus. We did quite a bit, and people got busy with their lives on the board, and they kind of fell off or they had other things to do, and I volunteered to help out, and I kept on doing things to the point where, I was scheduling things, doing my part, kind of go from there. And I was encouraged after 2 years to run for chair. So I did. And during this entire time, we were doing different programming events. We were getting politicians across the United States. We had J.D. Scholten, Jade Harris out of Virginia. Just recently, we had Brian Sims out of PA, who is the CEO of Agenda PAC and is putting money in areas that haven't seen money in a while. So that is pretty exciting. We have these politicians and these organizers come in and tell their story so that people can hear it and hopefully take some value out of it and go home with it. And maybe they can apply it in their home districts and for the better and actually get their candidates elected. That was where we started with that. That was when I was treasurer, and we kind of ramped that up when I became chair 2 years ago. When I became chair, we added a virtual component because a lot of folks in rural areas do not have the means to go to convention every time. It is expensive. So we want to get as many people involved as possible and bring people to your table. And this is part of what we were talking about. Community building is bringing people to your table. You guys right here around these tables, you guys in the camera right now, thank you, are part of this community where you're coming in and you're learning as much as possible to be able to apply it to where you're at. And that's important. So, past 2 years, we went from, remember I told you at the beginning of this, it was a classroom, right? I got yanked in. They told me, "Oh God, you're in another state. Thank goodness." And this past couple weeks ago, I was in Philadelphia for my last By Name convention. Fortunately, like I said, today is my birthday. I brought you all cupcakes. But I'm now 35, and the Young Democrats of America your cutoff is 35. Now that technically doesn't cut off until like I turn 36. So technically I still got a year left, but the terms are for 2 years. And I didn't think it would be fair if I would run again and then have to drop off halfway into my term. So at this point, we went from a classroom size all the way up to Philadelphia, where they put us in the ballroom. And we had around over 100, probably about 150 people of various different chartered units / states that came in and listened to our speaker, Brian Sims, talk about a message of bringing a solid progressive message to our rural areas in order to turn out the vote in those areas, to encourage people to run and to get people to run in those areas that typically wouldn't. You sometimes go into red areas and there is no Democrat on the ballot. Is there any incentive for any of your Democratic friends in said areas to go out and vote? No. There could be a national candidate on there. Does that align with if it has the national candidate showed up in that county, in that area? You don't know. What if there's a local candidate? You know your friend down the road, they're running as a Democrat. Are you going to turn out for them? And if they turn out for them, are they going to vote down ballot for Democrats if they actually go to the voting booth? It's likely, maybe, maybe not. And some people have different opinions, right? So they may even split their ticket, but at least they're voting when they wouldn't have otherwise. They have a little bit of personal investment in that area, and that's a good thing. So keep that in mind whenever you're in these areas and kind of push, people to run. People, if you see somebody that you respect, somebody that you want to be in public office, encourage them to do so. That is part of this community building aspect. So back to the Young Democrats of America. When we were at convention, we had our presentation. I was very fortunate to have a second vice chair that was ready and willing to go and run for chair. He elected a solid rural caucus board and has a vision for the future of building rural caucuses in every Young Democrats chapter, or chartered unit, I should say, across the United States. In specific, during my term, we worked specifically with North Carolina and Georgia. And that was great work that we did, amongst other things. We did as much as we could, and we're continuing to grow. To the point where other caucuses in the Young Democrats of America are talking about, hey, we need to replicate what the rural caucus is doing. We need to bring people to the table. We need to bring people to us that attract other people to come and see what our message is and get people to do more activism. I've learned so much from my time in the Young Democrats of America that I've applied to places in Portage County, to more statewide campaigns, under Sheriff Brown's campaign. And now I can bring that message to as many people as possible. If we bring it home, we can have a shot, and that's important. So that's a bit of the bio about me. Now, I am no longer chair of the Young Democrats of America. They kindly gave me the title honorary chair emeritus, and they also call me unofficially Peepaw. Because because I am the oldest. And I'm like, thanks guys, you're the best. But it's really awkward, sidebar here, when you talk to your board and you're like, well, everybody remembers where they were on 9/11, and one of my board members is like, yeah, I was in the womb. And I'm like, oh, go home. But these are good people that I got to work with. And these folks brought lessons that they learned in their respective states. And they were scattered all over, right? People from Kentucky, people from Georgia, people from North Carolina, Virginia, New York, Nebraska, Minnesota, California. And they do have rural spaces out in California, no matter what you hear. So we got some really good lessons. We can apply it to where we work. And you can take that, and some of these lessons are good for the area that you're in, and some of them aren't. And that's up to you, because you know the area that you're in, right? You can look at something and say, is this going to work for Portage County? Maybe, maybe not. Is it something that we want to try, or is it an outright no? And you would know best because you live here. And that's important. So that's pretty much the bio for me about my activity in the Young Democrats of America. Now, all of that stuff that I have learned has led me to announce a run for the Kansas City School Board, which I'm really excited about. My nephew Gunnar is now going from elementary school to middle school. And I'm excited to make sure that he gets the same level of education. He and every other student and child in the Kansas City School District get the same level of education that I got, that they continue to get, despite whatever budget cuts come down from politicians in Columbus, budget cuts from wherever, federal government or anywhere they come from. But we got work to do, and that's kind of where you kind of put your pedal to the metal and do what you can. And that's why I'm running now. And I'm taking the lessons that I learned in all of these organizing spaces, and I get to apply it to not only other people's campaigns, as I have for many, many years now in Portage County, knocking on various doors for various candidates, to go to the Randolph Fair and be there at the Portage County Democratic Party booth, which we will touch on because I do have a story for you on that. And I wouldn't have otherwise, all because, you get to a point in your life where you look at something and you're like, okay, somebody needs to do something about that. And I'm hoping that many people, you guys are here right now, which means you've already had that thought, which is great. But you got to get other people to do that as well. So convince as many people, talk to your friends, talk to your family, talk to the young people in your lives especially, the ones that are disenfranchised, the ones that are so disillusioned with the entire process that they don't understand what's going on. And get them to actually get involved and say, hey, you are a person here too. You're a citizen. You can do these things. You just have to put yourself in that position and go for it. So keep that in mind. Specifically, another topic that that's my bio. That's kind of my message that I typically bring to everywhere I go to. We're talking about like different communication tactics that you can use when you're knocking on doors, when you're out in with the community, and actually get people to talk to you. And there's different things that we can do. You can do de-escalation techniques. People that have negative beliefs of Democrats, like out the door, that live in a media bubble, that just generalize you to the point where like, oh, you're just like everyone else. But I'm me. I'm a person. I'm an individual. You should get to know me and my values and make the judgment based off of that, not whatever news media source has told you what to think of me. I'm right here. Why are you taking somebody else's word that lives across the pond or across the United States over what I am as a person? And that's why you actually have to talk to folks and get to know them on a one-on-one basis. It's not something that you can do overnight. It is something that you actually have to work at. You get in a room with these people. You talk to these people at their doors. You knock on their doors. You go in and you tell them who you are, why you're there, and why you're supporting the message that you're supporting. And you give them a personal story of yourself. You don't just go into the door and knock on it and say, hey, I'm here with the Democratic Party and I support Sherrod Brown because, hold on one second, let me get my talking points here. Hold on. This, number one. No, number two. No, that's not going to work. It's disingenuous. It doesn't work. You can smell BS from a mile away just as well as anybody else. You can look at the talking points. Sure, they help. That's what the campaign wants to do. But then you have a personal story. I can tell you for a fact when I was knocking on doors for Sherrod Brown, I was telling you personally, like, hey, Sherrod Brown has done A, B, C, D. He saved pensions for millions, like hundreds of thousands of people. I think about 100,000 in Ohio, if I'm not mistaken. Don't put me on the numbers. I know it's something like that. But he did things like that. His actions speak louder than just words because he has been there. He has been there for us. And he'll continue doing that for every single one of us. I have personal family members that their stories are directly affected by different programs that the senator has put in place. Let me tell you about them. Let me tell you what they did before. Let me tell you what they did after they had access to those programs. And that's important. And people like those stories because they see that it's not just something that you're knocking on the door for somebody. You're taking a piece of yourself, a piece of your personal story, and you're telling it to folks, and they listen. And here's another thing that you got to do when you're knocking on people's doors. You have to listen to them. They might be upset with you. They might be turned off right off the rip that, hey, you're a Democrat. Why are you knocking on my door? You're like, hey, I'm happy to tell you. You got to be able to listen. I mean, like, I'm happy to I'm happy to have a civil conversation. The amount of times I have said that is a lot. I'm happy to have a civil conversation. I don't raise my voice, ever. Because as soon as you raise your voice, you're giving them license to do so too. Even if they initially raise their voice, you are the one that sets the tone. You can stay in control of that conversation. You say, hey, like, I understand that you're upset on this, but let me share with you why I'm at your door, why I'm talking to you right now, why I'm telling you the message that I am telling you, and why I think it's important. And you can take that as you will, if you have the time. And a lot of the times people will give you that chance. And that's great. And sometimes people won't. And that's a reality that we have to face as well. If they don't want to listen, you thank them for the time and you move on. But you're always respectful. I don't ever want to give anybody an interaction that makes them think, oh, PJ's a representative of a Democratic Party that, is rude. Are they all like that? Because they always do that, it seems like. I get generalized quite a bit of the time. But we don't have to be that. So it's incumbent on us to be better than what they think that we are. And to prove to them that we are, in fact, genuine people with personal experiences that are seeing the value in what we are basically telling people to support. And that's something. Yes?
How do you respond to the people that go and say, oh, well, the Democrats are just as bad as the Republicans now, and the Republicans are just as bad as the Democrats? How do you move them off that message?
Oh, that every politician is the same?
Yeah.
Yes. The question was, and I'm not sure if they can pick up from that end. You can? Okay, cool. Got you. Question is basically, how do you avoid the generalization between Democrats versus Republicans? We're going to revisit this back to make it personal. Okay, I can tell you for a fact that before this current term, I didn't worry about a lot of people's Medicaid. Before this current term, I didn't worry about my student loans as much. Before this current term, do I have to worry about the housing crisis a lot more? Do I have to worry about jobs and labor statistics? You cite exactly what you can do, specific line items that you hear on the national news, yes, but they have to have a personal connection. Because people identify, they'll just say, oh, you got that from CNN. You got that from whatever news source you got it from. And that might be factual, but people will listen to you if you say, this is my personal experience. You're getting a citation or a source in me. This happened to me. This happened to me, and this is how the fallout happened. And that is how you typically break through that. And that's my personal experience. And some people, like I said, I always offer the caveat. Some people will not listen. And that is something that is to be expected. Some people, and this is something that you have to realize, live in a particular media ecosystem that does not allow for this type of intrusion, if you will. So you have to be more of an intrusion than you'd care to admit. I come in and I call it busting people's balls. You're sitting here like, hey, let me tell you from my perspective what I know. I can give you citations, I can give you statistics, I can give you a different news source perhaps than whatever you're getting it from, or you ask where they get their information from. And that's another question that you can do as well, because it questions their news sources or their sources in general and encourage them to, well, I see where you're coming from. You don't want to disparage them ever, okay? Like, even if it's, something that, news source that, is definitely questionable. You're like, okay, I see it. Have you tried looking at other news sources, like actually looked at the actual statistics that are like presented as such? Things of that nature. It still stays respectful at the same time as it's like pushing them. Hey, like you gotta be able to, in order to take in a message, you gotta open the door, right? And you gotta open that door first, and that takes work. that answer your question? So, and you'll have those conversations a lot of times, especially when you're knocking on doors, especially. And this is another thing that I'll tell you. How many of you folks have knocked on doors for various candidates? So all of you, which is great. I'm hoping everybody raise their hands on the camera here too. But one of the things that I love doing during campaigns is actually knocking on doors because I get to talk to people. And I don't know if you guys have noticed, I do like to talk a little bit. Some people say I'm halfway decent at it. But you go up to a person's door and you see different things. So they'll give you a sense of the person's personality, however you see fit. During this last election, I knocked on doors for Sherrod Brown. And one of the things that the Brown campaign did, and rightly so, in my opinion, was to go after independents and some Trump voters. Because Sherrod Brown has been our senator for a very long time and has a good track record on it. So I knocked on several houses that had, one house in particular had a wooden carved picture of the current president of the United States on the door. And I was like, okay, this is going to be interesting. So knocked on the door. I said, hello, my name is PJ. I'm with the Democratic Party on behalf of Sherrod Brown, and I'm hoping I get a chance to talk to you for a little bit. And the lady, very kind lady, actually, looked at me. She said, did you see the door? And I was like, I did, actually. And I'm not talking about the presidential race. I'm talking about the senatorial race. Pretty sure you're pretty locked down for your choice on president right now. And she said, yeah, this household's pretty locked down on that. And I was like, fortunately, I'm not here about that. I'm here to talk about Sherrod Brown and what he's done for you and every other Ohioan in the years he's been in office as our senator. And we had a productive conversation. Now, did I get a voter for Sherrod? I don't know. Likely not. But the conversation wasn't bad. It was rather productive, and it was quite funny on the outgo because you're just like, all right, you acknowledge right off the bat. You're like, we're probably not going to agree on some things. I have an idea. I don't know why. But you treat people with respect. You kind of go in with that. And that's just how it works. It's the same communication techniques that you've utilized your entire life. You've talked to people your entire life. You've been in the community. You've talked to your family, your friends. You just have to think of it that way when you're knocking on doors. You're just potentially talking to a new friend. One that you may or may not have initial disagreements with right off the rip. And that helps me be able to knock on these folks' doors right off the rip. So, and that does help. Now, there are certain times when, you have the door open and people are quite belligerent or, not very nice at the outset. And if you ever feel in any danger, especially when you're knocking on doors, you just politely peace out. I've had one instance where a gentleman had a revolver at his side and opened the door. And I was like, oh, okay. And he's like, what makes you think you're coming to the right house here? And I was like, what, you got a 9mm there? He's like, oh, yeah, we actually had a conversation about his gun. And I was like, oh, I'm here for the Democratic Party. I don't know if you're going to want to chat about that. And he said, not particularly. And I was like, all right, well, hey, hope you have a great day. Take care. So kind of just move on. Wasn't necessarily a bad interaction, but it did jar you just a little bit. And that's why I always advise people, especially in more rural areas, to knock on doors with a friend. You have somebody driving, somebody else knocking on doors. Have a partner, that sort of thing. Safety's sake is always very important. But it, like I said, it only happened once to me. And I've knocked on lots of doors. So, not saying that it's going to happen to you, but you just be respectful as possible, and then you just do what you can. And this isn't to scare you or anything. People have differing opinions. I know plenty of people that have guns, and they are pretty liberal, and they actually do carry around their weapon on their side all the time. So could be one of those. You don't know. But if you ever get the heebie-jeebies, trust your gut. Go. Get the house. Go away. You know yourself. You know the people around you, and your safety is the most important thing out of this entire thing. So, and de-escalation can work. a lot of the times. I personally utilize a lot of de-escalation techniques. So I used to work for parking services at Kent State. I was not well liked because I gave tickets. But you kind of have to learn de-escalation right off the rip right there. And that helped me a lot whenever I'm knocking on doors, whenever I'm talking to voters, whenever I'm talking to people in the community. And it also helped that right after that, I went in and I was a bouncer at a bar. I also bartended for many years. So I learned a lot on those jobs where you have to have situational awareness. You look at different people, you look how they're dressed, you look at their face, you kind of see if they're looking ornery, they're looking upset, you kind of know how to set the tone right off the rip. And this kind of segs into the Randolph Fair story, but I can take the question first.
Before you move on to
Yeah.
this, I feel like most of us that have knocked on doors have done it in the past.
Uh-huh.
And most of us maybe haven't done it recently.
Mhm.
Because I think a lot of us do feel the fear that you're talking about. I think it's real when we hear stories about people getting shot for no reason, for coming on their porch.
Yep.
And so I think that maybe I'm speaking wrongly for the rest of the crowd, but I just feel like door knocking is great, but I'm not nearly as comfortable as I was doing it for Obama.
That's a
Okay.
fair assessment too. The political climate now is wildly different than it was in 2008 when I was knocking on doors. So, and that's something that you have to take into consideration. And come to think of it, now that we're talking about it, when I was in 2008, I was knocking on doors by myself a lot of the time. And now I don't advise a lot of people to do that ever. And like maybe in Kent, like a more urban area to a degree, but even then you should have somebody checking in on you on the regular and kind of go from there. In a more rural area, and I'll give you just a sec, in a more rural area, this is why I always say partner with somebody that has a vehicle. Plus geography is your enemy.
Right.
On that, you have way too much ground to cover in order to do all that just by walking. So a good partnership is essential, especially in today's climate. And I think that door knocking is still a very, very, very good thing to do. At the same time as I recognize exactly what you said, that there is a concern. So, but we do what we can to make sure that we're safe, always.
And even in an area as small as in very rural areas such as Portage County, we have to be afraid what you say because there's a sheriff who can look up every piece of information about you and retaliate against you.
Certainly.
And that's scary.
Mm-hmm. And I would advise everybody to take that into account and just be your best. You do everything you can to protect yourself, especially keeping that in mind. And the chief law enforcement officer of any county, any area, should be responsible for all of their citizens. And in an instance such as this, where you don't feel like they are, that's not good. So we keep that in mind. I don't particularly have a good bit of advice to refute that because I can't.
And they have a lot of.
They do. They do. They really do.
Both literal and.
Figuratively, yes. You're good. And I feel you on that. I still think it's worth every time to knock on doors and just be as safe as possible. Yes.
I'm very reluctant to knocking on doors anymore, but I do work with like League of Women Voters and things. And I have found going to doing some of the festivals and stuff like Art in the Park and so on, where, and League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan group.
Yeah.
So, and I found really positive conversations with like gerrymandering conversation. And, so I tend to go more of that I'm in a place where I feel safe.
Yeah.
And I don't think I would do door knocking anymore unless it's in Kent. I would probably be arguing with people. I'd be with people that are already.
Well, specifically, Ken will throw you for a loop sometimes. I have two points I want to take from you. One is that you're touching on community events is extremely important.
Yeah.
Because the community comes to you. You're going to be able to talk to more people in community events, such as Art in the Park, such as the Randolph Fair. By default, because the concentration of people in that area has grown, people come to you. You don't have to knock on doors, people will go to you. And it's a much more safe area. Like you said, you feel more comfortable in those areas, and you should, because people are around you. So if you're comfortable doing that and that's your thing, go for it. That's awesome. And it's actually one of my favorite things to do. I like talking to people in general, but like that'll help. The second point I would like to make is that you said that I had a point and I just lost it for a second. You saw it? It just went off the rails. It'll come back to me and I'll touch on it. But we were just actually talking about segueing into my next story, which is at the Randolph Fair. I have manned the booth at the Randolph Fair before, and one of the things I like to do is you have a table here, for example, and I'm going to move around just a little bit. So you have a table for the Democratic Party booth, and you're waiting for people to come up to you and talk to you. Why do we do that? You can stand out front of the table, see people coming to you, and talk to them as they get to you. And it also gives you an opportunity to see people as they come up to your booth, and you get a sense of them before they get there. For example, when I was at the Portage County Randolph Fair, I believe it was a couple of years ago, I can't remember which year, but it was one of the stories that I like to tell is that I was out front of the booth, and I was seeing everybody around me. And this is from my bartending days, from my bouncing days. You gotta have situational awareness. And you see different people walking up, and you can see the ones that are going to be ornery because they see the Democratic Party booth and they want to say something, and that's okay. People are entitled to their First Amendment freedom of speech rights. But, you can do a couple different things. One gentleman had a 1776 t-shirt on with a bunch of guns on it and had a massive, massive thing of kettle corn. It was huge. And he was just carrying it around. But boy, I saw him from afar, about from here, about a little bit that way. You could see him walking toward it. And he saw the Democratic booth. And he kind of zeroed in on it. You saw his eyes just kind of lock on it. And I'm just like, okay, I kind of know where this is going. So he got close enough, and I waited. And he got close enough, and he opened his mouth. And I said, hey, where'd you get the kettle corn? And he's just like, huh? I said, the kettle corn, are you going to eat all that yourself? And he said, oh, no. I was like, hey, it's a lot of kettle corn. Are you here with your family? Well, yeah, I'm actually here with my wife and kids. And I was like, oh, that's cool. You guys going to split it amongst yourself? You think you're going to actually be able to tackle that entire thing tonight? And he said, yeah. I was like, did you get a chance to try it beforehand? And he said, yeah, it's actually really good. I was like, I was thinking about getting some myself. Can you tell me where you got it from? And he's like, oh, yeah, it's actually right down the way. Take a left right there. And it's about the fourth or fifth one down. And I'm like, oh, awesome. I appreciate it. They said, oh, hey, I'm here with the Democratic Party, and I'm happy to have a civil conversation with you if you'd like. And he looked at me, he looked at the booth, and he said, well, it's not quite for me. I said, hey, if you want to come back and talk to me, I'm happy to chat with you anytime. And I hope you and your family have a great time at the Randolph Fair. He said, okay, thank you. And he walked on. And I had my friend Chris behind me who said, how the hell did you do that? I was like, I don't know. You just watch people until they come up to you and kind of roll with it. Because you see people. You guys have lived your lives. You see people every day of your lives. You can see when people are upset. You can see when people are happy. You can see when people are having a good day, when people are going to have a bad day, when people are going to be angry, when people are going to be ornery. And you can utilize that. You just got to put yourself in that position of being aware. And that's something that's important at these community events that we were talking about in particular. Because some people do want to be ornery. And they're in a space with a lot of people. They can, be, however they seem to be or disagree. And they come up and say, well, the Democrats are doing A, B, C, and D. And I could say, well, that's not quite accurate. I'm happy to have a discussion. If you'd like to have a civil conversation, I always emphasize civil conversation, I'm happy to do so. And if they are, awesome. It is a conversation that they would not have had before. And if they aren't, you wish them well and have a good day. And they move on. And the interaction is still to them positive. And that's important. So I hope that's something that you can take away from that. And that's just from my personal experiences. And mind you, I do have a background in bouncing and bartending and parking services, all that stuff. But this is stuff that I learned not only on the job, but in my day-to-day life. I talk to people all the time. You can see people. Yes?
Can you give us a couple positive phrases to transition people when they're telling us incorrect information that you can say, well, that's really not true? Can you help that is like not escalating?
One of the things I like to say is, I see your point of view. I don't agree with it. I don't like to say it's not true right off the bat, because it is one of those things where people have a wishy-washy definition of truth as it is, and it is hard to get solid facts. So when people are telling you what they believe, I say, oh, okay, that's not the way I see it. I get my information from A, I get my information from B. Actually, the statistics that I have read, and I get it from this site, and I'm happy to show you, is this, and that doesn't quite jive with what you're saying. Have you considered this? It opens the door in their mind to, oh, okay, he's not automatically saying that what I'm saying is a lie. Because once you call somebody a liar, you've lost. You're like, oh, you're lying. Are they going to talk to you after that? No, they ain't going to talk to you. And you want to keep the conversation going, because every single person out there is a potential friend, is the way I say it. So you go in, you go out there. They might not agree with you. I have a family that I grew up in a rather conservative family, and I love every single one of them. And do we agree? God, no. So, but you got to try. And they know I'm going to bust their media bubble every chance I get. So it is something, and hacking my aunt comes to me and says, now I heard this. What do you say about this? And this is another thing that I should touch on. If you don't know the answer, don't be afraid of saying, I don't know. Because there's a lot of information out there, and it's important to keep that in mind. You can't just, well, this is the way I feel. You want to give them something solid. And if you don't know the facts on it, or a good citation or anything, you can say, well, I don't think that's quite right, but I'm going to have to do some research into it myself, and we'll revisit this topic the next time we talk to each other. I'm okay with that. I don't like to just, people talk, typical politician you were talking about earlier, you're generalizing Democrats and Republicans. You want to be a generalization? No. You want to have a conversation. You want to be able to have a connection with people. And if you have a connection with people, you're not a typical politician. You're not a typical volunteer. You're not a typical organizer. You're not a typical anything. You're a person that they can respect and have a conversation with. And that is important. So I hope that makes sense on that. Do you have any questions on this so far? You want to open it up a little bit. And if there's any questions on the Zoom or the YouTube, please let me know. Yes?
I think there is something to be said for having some common ground and trying to find out people.
Mm-hmm.
And I had like an experience where last year where I was in Georgia,
mm-hmm.
and I got talking to some women. It was just casual conversation. It was around the fall before the election,
mm-hmm.
and they said, they could say, well, where are y'all from? And I said, well, I'm from Ohio. And they went, oh, Ohio, and we were like, oh, Ohio, and I'm going, and they said, we heard about the dogs and cats.
Oh, for goodness sake.
And I said, oh, that. And they said, well, really, they're not doing it. And so we heard about those patients taking over there. And I said, yeah, I said, it's funny about immigrants. I said, my family came from Sweden, and it was around that. And I come from a family, and I started telling my story, and they were like, oh, well, my family's from Jordan, from Germany. My family came from Poland, and we started talking about our stories of immigration. And then, the next thing I said, well, then you know how it was, how we, my family had struggled, my grandmother, and we started talking about our stories about immigration, and I didn't change their mind. I didn't, not that they were going to vote, for Kamala anytime soon, but it just kind of opened the door, saying like,
yes,
yeah, we struggled too when we were immigrating to this country. Remember that? And remember sometimes they made fun of you?
That is exactly what you should do in those situations. Opening a door just leaves it to be opened even further down the road. You might not be able to convince them otherwise right then and there, but that commonality that you have between them and you, and that you're sharing of stories, is so important. And what you did, that is a fantastic story. Thank you. And for the folks on YouTube, I'm not sure if you got to hear that. We had I'm not sure your name. Jill here was down in Georgia and heard the story from a Georgia resident that the stories of the cats and dogs, Haitians eating animals in Springfield story. And then Jill had some commonality when we talked about our shared experiences, our shared family experience of actually immigration coming from Germany for the person, and then I believe you said your family's from?
Oh, I'm from Sweden.
Sweden. So like that shared experience, family experience that you can apply to the folks in Springfield. And same for me. My family's from, my dad's side of the family is all from Italy. I mean, like there you have that. And they were not well liked at the beginning of the 1900s by any means. But you have to remind some folks, especially my own, So you remind people all the time, and that's important. Like, hey, my family members, I'm like, hey, you're very conservative. You're quite on the anti-immigration bent here. But do you remember how it was for our great-grandfather, our great-great-grandfather, our great-grandmother, our great-great-grandmother, when we were demonized for coming over here and seeking a better life? How can we jive with what's happening today, with what happened to our family? And that's important right there. You don't say ancestors, our family, because you want that personal connection. So, and that's what you did, and it's fantastic. And thank you. Really, that connection right there is perfect. And I hope people do more of it in the future. Yes?
Hi, I'm Denise, and one of the things I would like to see more of is maybe not home parties. Maybe everyone's a little leery of inviting someone to their home. But we've got garages, we've got some lovely weather, our drives, our front porches, or our back porches. If we could have, especially out in the Paris Townships, the Woodstown,
Yeah.
far apart from each other, of having some people over in your neighborhood or people you know, even from other townships, and invite them to meet a candidate, invite them to talk, invite them to, invite PJs over, invite people over that can talk and just say, come on and meet, let's have a conversation. I call them the Tupperware Avon way of
The Tupperware.
campaigning. It's like I have a few people over to my house, and maybe one or two of them will get the idea, okay, let me do something in my house now, on my front porch. And again, I just think that might be a good way to start getting people involved and getting that conversation one at a time.
I think it's an excellent idea. It really is. Just finding folks to be able to host those events is the challenge on them that I have the space. It is.
So
And
barbecue
folks,
at Denise's.
a party at Denise's, is that what I mean?
Yeah, barbecue, yep.
Thank you, Denise. And Denise is the chair of the Portage County Democratic Party and had just told us, and I'm just repeating what you said for the benefit of the folks on YouTube here, is the suggestion is essentially an Avon Tupperware-esque party of gathering people in one's homes, especially in rural areas, in order to have a speaker, sort of party, a gathering of community in areas where they typically don't. And that is actually really important. And I, unfortunately, don't have as much experience with that particular party, but I would love to have more experience with that type of party. Bringing people together is always very important. You're always going to have people that come in, either you're, like I said, you're knocking on doors, you're going to community events. If they come to you, even better. If you can convince them to actually have a stake in your community and go from there, that's the way to do it. So, and what Denise said is absolutely perfect. I think you need to, push that if you can. Having somebody that has the land and the ability to do that, though, is a little bit different. And that might be something that, different organizations can get involved in and kind of help out with that sort of thing. And that's something that we should definitely explore with further. So, does that sound about right, Denise?
No, I think that's exactly it.
Yeah.
And it does take maybe a couple of phone calls or maybe a letter or a flyer to some neighbors, or a phone call to a couple of your friends. you just say, and some pizza or chips and dip, nothing real big, though, there won't be steaks in my house, but there may be pizza and chips and things like that. So you can sit around and talk and gab, and, maybe in this weather, there'll be popsicles, or something like that.
That's definitely a
So you
good
can
thing.
just sit and gab and enjoy, and again, it can be in your garage or in your driveway, it doesn't have to be inside if you're a little wary of inviting people inside your home.
Exactly. It doesn't have to be in your home. It could be in your garage. It could be backyard, something like that. It doesn't have to be big, but it can be. So, like, you can grow
Five
from.
people over near your house,
Yep.
and one of them has, I'll do it in my house. They know 5 different people than you do, and that's how you.
And I think in that case, if it's a small enough party or something, and you're having people out in the middle of rural nowhere coming together, a phone call is probably best to say, hey, when do you have time? Let's see if we can organize this little shindig, get together and actually chat and get to know one another. And I think that's the best way to do it. That's an excellent idea. And that's just an example of community building that we can do on that.
Well, that's something that used to take place a lot in previous decades.
No, absolutely. And I'll tell you what, that statistically, and this is something I read a while back, forgive me if it's not quite accurate now, but statistically from what I had read, is there was a shift from when people started building instead of front porches to back porches, because people started spending more time in their backyard and not in the front part of their house when people had been walking by on the sidewalk. And it was a disconnect in the community at that time. This is decades ago, mind you, because God knows our back porch is old and decrepit at ours house, but that's when it kind of, one of the examples of kind of a breakdown in the community is when people started not being as connected. When they started going into the backyard and being more private and more separated, you have this attitude that, well, if it's not happening to me, it doesn't matter.
Less social media and more people to people.
Exactly. You have that lack of connection, and the only connection you have is through the social media event. That isn't very helpful at all. So, no, you're very correct on that.
It got worse after COVID too.
It did. It got much worse after COVID. People lived in their social media bubbles, and once it was established, it was set. And you have to keep in mind that social media algorithms are a big problem, because what these companies do, are they want views. They want you to look at their ads. That's how they make their money. So they will serve you content that keeps you on your phone as long as humanly possible. Sure, people love looking at cute kittens all the time. They're adorable. But are you going to watch them as much as you watch something that makes you upset? Probably not. So those algorithms are designed specifically to get you mad, which is furthering the division in this country, which is bad.
So how do we do this online? Because I know I've been quite guilty of being mean sometimes.
Mhm.
But since we went and set this up, I've actually started to watch my P's and Q's online with people that I don't know. And for example, for this one, somebody had posted a whole 5 or 6 different memes about how terrible the Democrats are and how they're ruining the world. And I said this to them. I said, well, thank you. But for those who want to learn how to, talk to people that don't agree with them and kind of stop this divide in this world, come on over anyway.
Be welcoming. Be kind. Be what they don't expect you to be, because they already have an image of what you and what the Democratic Party is in general. So you kind of roll with it. What I do personally on my social media, and what I do personally, and the best example of this is my Facebook, for example. Now, am I a keyboard warrior? Probably in a previous life I was, but I never ever swore. I never ever insulted anyone. I had a set amount of rules on my personal Facebook. I would post my opinion. I would never, say, well, this person so. I would actually back it up with facts. With what I would want my opinion. I would be clear in saying, hey, this is my opinion. And I would be very clear in saying that you don't get to swear on my page. So when a family member or a friend of mine from grade school pops on my posts and swears up a storm and calls certain politicians in the Democratic Party certain words that are not very kind, what I did was I deleted the comment and I posted and added them. And I said, hey, I deleted your comment because you A, swore, and I don't like that on my page. And two, you need to, if you have a disagreement, I'm welcome to talk to you about it, but you have to have a civil, remember this, civil conversation. And if you're not willing to have that, then you don't get to post on my page. It's my page. Okay, I'll delete your comment. And people can say, oh, that's an infringement of my First Amendment rights, and blah, blah, blah. You can do that on your own page. Okay? Go have at it, go ham, talk to people, be in your own bubble if you'd like. But I'm more than willing to have a conversation, but I'm not willing to be yelled at. I'm not willing to be insulted. I'm not willing to be demeaned as a person. I'm not doing it. And once you set those boundaries, that helps. One of my examples is a family friend of mine had posted some not very nice things. I did what I had said. I deleted their comment. I said, hey, this is not acceptable, and I'm happy to have a civil conversation. And they came back and swore a little bit more, and I deleted the comment again. And then I posted, I said, is this the way we were raised? Like I know their family personally. I'm like, is this the way so-and-so taught you to communicate with other people? Because I still have a lot of respect for you as a person because we grew up together and we had these shared experiences. And I don't think I would never speak to you this way, in the way that you're speaking to me right now. And the follow-up to that was, I'm sorry. And I respect you, and I'm sorry we had this disagreement. And yeah, is it going off on other ones? Probably. But with me, he's having a little bit more of a civil conversation because you set those bars right there that you had, and that's important. Yeah.
I like how you said, is that how you're raised? It's like when I was growing up and walk in a full day and leave boring. It's like, what, were you born in a barn?
Yeah, exactly. Born in a barn is what it is.
That's a nicer way of saying the same thing.
But it's something that you have to remind folks of. You really do. And people get it's basically an outrage machine, right? Like people get that I forget what the chemical in your brain is that, you get that anger and it just feeds into it a little bit. It's like there's something that gives you like, you get mad and you want to just
Adrenaline rush.
adrenaline rush, I believe it is, something like that.
Cortisol.
It gives you that, but you don't feed into it. You're not feeding into the anger. You're just stating, hey, I don't communicate that way. You can do that on your own page, not me. And if you don't want to be friends anymore, you're more than welcome to not be my friend anymore. But if you ever want to chat civilly, I'm happy to do so. Now, do I get mad sometimes? Absolutely. Do I throw it on Facebook and all social media and, doom and gloom and throw it? I try not to. And sometimes you feel bad about the way things going on in the country. Craziness is happening and you got to do what you can. But am I going to stop? Am I going to just sit down and take it? Oh, no, I'm not built that way. And my mother didn't raise, anyways. So that's something that you need to take into account. And reminding people where they're from, specifically, were you born in a barn? Was that the way you were raised? Is that the way your grandma, someone you respected a lot, would expect you to speak to someone else? And then let them stew. And sometimes you get served something better. So that's something to consider. I think we've pretty much gone through a good chunk of my list here, except we've been popping all around. Yes, sir.
I just have a question.
Certainly.
And, it's regarding shared ground.
Yes.
It seems like you campaigned for it quite a bit.
Mhm.
And right now, shared ground is supposed to be working for union workers or something.
I can't hear you very well, sir. I'm sorry.
I said, right now, shared ground seems to be working for union workers.
Mhm.
But he's still sending out uh, cards and letters asking for contributions.
Mhm.
But it doesn't appear that he has a cause, short of saying he's working for unions.
Mhm.
And it almost makes me feel like, okay, I'm just giving him money so he has income.
Mhm.
Uh, And, it's just a question is he getting ready to run for something or rerun or whatever? And if he is, that's great.
Yeah.
But he needs to let us know. So what do you know?
What do you know?
I wish I knew more, is what I could say. What I can tell you is that I'm a huge fan of Sheriff Brown and have been since I was little, and I have a lot of respect for his work. And the fact of the matter is that if there's a senator in Ohio, if there's a politician in Ohio that it can work as hard as he does, it is very nice to have somebody to be an advocate for us and for labor and for working people. And I have a ton of respect for that man. And I look forward to see what he does in the future. Whatever it is, I have his back. I have a lot of, like I said, that dude's awesome. Like, he is one of the most authentic people I have ever spoken to in my life. He's down to earth. He might, speaks with very gravelly tone, kind of throws you for a loop when you first meet him. But it's one of those things where we're just talking about communication, right? You get a sense of people based off of what you know about them. You get to meet people, you shake their hand, you look them in the eye, and you don't get that sense with Sherrod Brown that he's a typical person. So, and that was my knee-jerk reaction. Now, have I had a lot of conversation with Sherrod Brown? No. I volunteered a lot for him. I volunteered a lot in Kent. They found out that I could use a computer and immediately threw me into an office to coordinate a bunch of stuff. I was like, whoops. But I have no regrets on that. We got a lot of people out knocking on doors for Sherrod, and no regrets on that front. It's unfortunate that he did not win. I was very, very sad about that. And I hope what he does in the future, especially in regards to contributions or whatever he comes down the pike, I can tell you, I'm 99.9% sure he's not done. So whatever it is, if he's asking for contributions, it's got to be something coming up. So cross your fingers. So it's my message. Sorry. Yes.
He had a really great article in the New Republic
Mhm.
about.
And
About
if you could
connecting.
take the mic, because I can't hear very well back there. I'm sorry.
Okay.
If you don't mind.
Sure.
Just,
Sure, I actually have a t-shirt voice.
you're good.
There was a really good article in the New Republic a few months ago that he wrote. It was about how the Democrats, he was quite critical of the Democrats about losing their way, that they've gotten too, for lack of a better term, elite, a little bit too high and mighty. And he felt that the Democratic Party rather, was elite in the way that they were starting to preach to the common people, saying, well, we know better than you. And he felt the way, he didn't quite say that way, but in the article I was saying, like, people would rather be voting for an idiot than somebody that lectures them and says that they're less than they are. And so I was saying, like, how can somebody vote for Trump and vote against their interests? And he said they would rather vote for a clown than somebody that thinks that they're stupid. And he said, and however that happened, however that message got, people think, yeah, I voted for an idiot, but he's nicer than Kamala. And he was talking about how can we get back to the people, that it's like it was all these elite people that are having their wares and everything, and we've lost our way as a party. So I don't know if you've talked to Sharon about that, but I actually met him too in Hudson, and he spoke a little bit about that too, that we need to come back to our people and have that message that we're the ones for the workers and not the party that says that they're working for the party, because they're not, and we miscommunicated, we missed some opportunities.
I agree with Jared on that 100%, because the proof is in the pudding, right? Like we've seen different communication strategies fail, especially when they're coming from the Democratic Party. And this isn't just in rural areas, urban, it is across the board. And if it is broke, you should fix it. I've been harping on that for years. And it's nice that, Sherrod recognizes that's why he survived in Ohio for a very long time, is he recognizes that communication strategies are important. Didn't quite pan out this last election, unfortunately. And to give you some clarification, I've only met the man like twice. I've talked to him once, or twice in passing, on that. But the one conversation I had was specifically in Geauga, where I was a speaker as the chair of the Young Democrats of America's Rural Caucus. And great guy, and that's where I would like it from him. I wish I had a personal relationship with the man. A big fan, but I don't quite have the context I wish I could give you. That being said, for just a moment, the fact of the matter is what he said in the New Republic or whatever article it was that you had said, it sounds very accurate to me, because you had a solid, if you're looking historically, you're looking at, let's take Ohio, for example. You have the southeast bend of Ohio. We have the longest serving House Speaker, Democrat, come from that area. The last serving Democratic governor, Ted Strickland, came from that area. And it was pretty solid blue at the time. We had an ally in the labor movement. We had an ally with working people. And now it's not. It's red. And we should be able to get back. But we're obviously doing something wrong. So ignoring a problem isn't helpful at all. And trying something different isn't a bad thing. And just kind of rolling with it is the only thing that we can do in these instances. And I think what he had said is quite accurate. So, you said something.
I'm gonna put you on the spot because I know. What do you think our message, especially from Portage County Democrats, needs to be to Kathleen Clyde to help us? She's obviously one of us. She's in a big shoe position right now. And I've always loved Kathleen. But I think we should be in a position where we could say to her, we need a little bit more from the Ohio Democratic Party than we've ever gotten. And what are the questions do you think we should be asking her in order to help us?
I think one of the questions we need to be asking is what strategy is going to be different now than it was in the past? And that needs to be outlined in full. I have a lot of respect for Kathleen. She was a great commissioner. And for a fact, I'll tell you exactly, when I was bartending downtown Kent, she did meet with constituents on the regular in my bar. She was very communicative on that. So I have a lot of faith in Kathleen, just to put that out there. But as the Democratic Party as a whole, like, we just acknowledge that there's something wrong with our communication strategies, something wrong with how we do things. And not acknowledging it isn't going to fix it. So we need to do more. We need to change strategies. We need to invest in areas that haven't been invested in. We need to do something different. And I'd like to see that. Now, I have all faith in the world that someone who's just been elected chair of the Democratic Party of Ohio is a big shoes to fill right there too. So I'm not trying to put her on the spot or anything like that, but I expect something to come down the pike down the road. So I'm hoping, I'm very hopeful on that. So I am. And she has specifically, just go a little bit further, been a very big ally to rural folks, to LGBT folks, especially on campus, especially Kent. So, like, I do have a lot of optimism for her and positive outlook.
Okay, let's see what happens.
Yep. Yes.
Yeah, sometimes I just feel like we're just so gerrymandered that there's not a snowball's chance that we can tip the scales anymore. And now they want to make it even more. Change our districts around so that it slants even worse. I mean, you have that, you combine that with out-of-state money coming in just to really have their way. And you know, we have good people in Ohio. Tim Ryan's a good person. Sharon's a good person. I mean, they would be good for Ohio no matter what. But they just get outcome. And that's flat out where it's at. I mean, it's almost like you have billionaires coming in and just handing people $100 bills and buying votes, you know. But you know, as long as we have Citizens United out there, we're screwed.
I'm not necessarily disagreeing with you on that front, but I'm going to tell you that as much as it seems, and it is in some cases, almost insurmountable, I am of the mind that I am not, and it is so hard sometimes to get up and do the work, right? It is so hard to get up to go and volunteer because you don't know if what you're doing is going to have any effect. You don't know if folks are going to hear you, let alone take your message and work with it. But what I do know is that if you don't do that, if I don't do that, if we don't do that, then there's no point to any of this. So, yes, gerrymandering is a horrible problem that we need to face. Billionaires throwing money at a problem like a water balloon full of paint, like it's gonna happen, and this is the world we live in. It doesn't have to be. We just have to keep working and trying to make it better. I wish I had a more definitive answer for you on that.
I mean, there is really no answer for it.
Yeah.
It's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, don't blame the Democrats for it.
Yeah.
But it's almost like we need to get more millionaires and billionaires and take them Democrats. But
That would be nice, I guess. But at the same time, I think getting more, I would like to see more investment from working people and more. I have such a weird relationship with people that are a little bit more on the wealthier side. And Denise will be up next, but before you go, getting people across the board invested in this, it does take work. Small dollar donations give people a chance to feel like they are actually contributing something. Getting those people to do small dollar donations and to knock on doors, even better. You need investment in order to do these things. That's why you have people, progressive politicians that have relied solely on small dollar donations that have pretty good success. But then you have like a lot of people that rely on big money, and that's another challenge we have to face. There's a lot.
before she talks, just 1 second.
Yeah.
Is, you know, we're pretty generous at giving donations to our cause.
Yeah.
But because we are, we get solicited from senators and representatives, 10 states away. And it's like, so really the Democratic Party is just selling our name and address to get more money for whoever.
Right.
I would prefer to give to the Democratic Party, and they can disperse it to whoever they think needs help, than I would to give to some guy that's running for senator or a House of Representatives in Nevada. Why bother wasting a piece of paper?
Honestly, on that front, with especially fundraising and stuff, that's not quite my area of expertise. I wish I could give you a definitive answer, but yeah, it's every angle. They try and fundraise as much as they can. As a candidate now, I can tell you it's boggling my mind to try and do stuff like this. So it's just the relationship. You were talking about Citizens United, right? Like, it's wild to me that you could just throw money, that much money, at one thing, and it's just like, you look at Bernie Moreno, for example, and that's just like insane. So like, I don't have a good answer for you. I'm sorry.
I'm sure nobody does.
But I'm hoping that we have one sometime. And Denise, I'm sorry. Yeah, right.
A couple of things. First of all, Bill and everybody else here, the Portage County Democratic Party will glad to take any we don't sell names. But I think those local dollars make a difference. I mean, there's the Federated Democratic Women, they provide actual contributions to candidates. What we've done is billboards, and those postcards and that kind of advertising. And look, the difference it made when we were doing the issue 1 in November on reproductive rights, and then the special election in August of 23. It made a huge difference when we did those things. And let me give you some numbers, because you're right, Citizens United and those dollars, gerrymandering, it feels insurmountable. But let me give you some numbers that I was given the other day on Zoom. If Sherrod Brown, for example, had gotten 5% more votes in every county, he'd be our senator right now. In Portage County, that translates to, in every jurisdiction, every township, and the villages, cities, 20 votes. There are a number of precincts in Portage County that have less than 50% turnout in that election. There are a lot of people that stayed home because, what's the point of voting for president? And I think the information you can give when you have those front porch, backyard parties is it makes a difference to the local candidates. It makes a difference to that Senate candidate. That's where it makes a difference that you get out and vote. That you vote that ballot and vote what they call down ballot. Vote all the way down. If you have to start at the bottom of your ballot and vote upwards. Because it makes a difference. 20 votes everywhere in each township or each city here in Portage County would have made a difference. And each of us here just has to convince 2 people to go home. That's what that means. There's 20 votes in our little jurisdictions. And again, so it's not insurmountable. Please don't give up. And with respect to Senator Brown, I think we'll do something by Labor Day. And as to what his decisions will be.
That was a little bit more direct than what I said.
It's either going to be convinced by his wife to stay home and actually be retired, and finish all those things she has in her list of things to do to her. Because everyone's wife has one of these, or he's going to make a decision how they want to do it. So, but please don't give up. Please have those front porch backyard events and invite 5, 7 people, or invite 10 people and 5 to 7 will show up. Because that's who you can be convinced to vote, to register to vote if you're not registered to vote. And then the third thing is have the conversation and vote like I want you to vote. But start with register to vote, please vote, and that's how we make a difference. That's myself.
Especially the investment of younger folks. Like a lot of people are very disenchanted with the entire system. And if you hold on right there, because I believe John would like to go, but I believe you had it first. But I would say young people in particular are not happy with the way things are going. Getting them to actually vote is paramount. I registered 3 different people to vote today and yesterday that just turned 18. We had a conversation of why it's important to vote and explaining your personal experiences, not just, it's your civic duty, and not that it's just something that's important. Your personal experiences that you can say that women now have less rights than they did 25 years ago. Like young ladies that are being born right now are born with less rights than people that were born 25 years ago. And that you have to wrap your mind around that. It's important to vote. It is critically important to vote, and until people get that message and internalize it, they're not going to. And it's paramount for us to go and talk to folks, especially young people, and explain why. Use your personal experiences. Talk to them on why it is important to vote, why it's important to get your message across and make your voice heard. So there's that. And I believe, hold on one second, because John is first. You're first.
Yeah, I'm first.
Excuse me.
So Yeah, I just want to have a couple comments and then sort of a question.
Yes.
So, yes, I want to echo a lot of things that are being said here, and that we really need to start focusing on local, because I think we haven't done very good local with the Democratic Party right now. Because from people I've heard, they would say, oh, well, somebody hasn't run for this, a Democrat hasn't run for this seat for so long. There's just, the Republicans just keep on getting in, and the more local ones. But also, one of the things that you said was also echoed with what John had said last week. John Kennedy, he was saying that, it is our values. We have to put our values out there. We have to put and not apologize for them at all, because this is what we believe. So that being said, and also the whole thing of, the things that are being said and we've lost the message is, I'm wondering if it starts with Hillary Clinton's basket of deplorables. And then right now there's this fervor, or a taste for blood in the water of people are like, well, they're mean to us all the time, so we're going to go back and we're going to hit hard and we're going to tell them how mean. Like, we're just going to be as mean and direct with it. But I think that we turn off people that way.
You can turn off people being mean in general. Being direct is something that I think that is not a bad thing.
Yeah.
So there's a difference between being mean and being direct. The conversation about they go low, we go high. And then there's a conversation, they go low, we cut them off with the okay, it's a little bit much, but I see.
Says they go low, we say fuck you.
Well, something like that, yes. But
No, he doesn't like swearing on his page.
But he said
no, I don't like swearing on my page, but I see where you're coming from. Yes,
Yeah.
but being direct, yeah, I could be direct all day. I'm quite blunt when it comes to those sorts of things. I say.
What about sarcastic?
Sarcastic? Oh, sarcasm is fun. It's a tool that you can use. But there is a line. You have sarcasm can get your point across to those who already agree with you very easily. And sometimes it'll make the point in somebody's mind that doesn't agree with you that they should think about it more. So I think it should be used sparingly in certain circumstances. And somebody with which you're more comfortable with. I have Republican friends. Yes, they do exist. I have Republican friends that I'm happy to use sarcasm with because we do have a good friendly banter. We fundamentally disagree on a lot of things, a lot. But, can I use sarcasm with them? Yes. Can I use them with the average person on the street? Yeah, probably not. So I wouldn't advise that as much as you want to sometimes. But it is more my style of communication, and like I said, this is a very Midwest. I didn't say this. It's a very Midwest event. We're from Ohio, right? We're polite to a fault sometimes, and it doesn't necessarily help us a lot of the times. But if you go to New York or something, that's a whole nother ballgame, guys. It's crazy. I have friends from New York that are just wild. Their communication style would not work here. My communication style sometimes does not work in New York. And you kind of adapt to where you're at. So yes, I do think that sarcasm can be used carefully in those circumstances. Being mean, that one's less likely to get any support from me. I don't like being mean. I like being blunt. I like being direct. I've told somebody, well, if you're not willing to have a simple conversation, then stop talking to me. It's very easy. If they keep on going, okay, I'll block you. It was if you told somebody, I was this is the part where I'm going to acknowledge that, we're arguing like children. I don't want to do this anymore. If you'd like to carry on, you're more than welcome, but not with me. And if you'd like to come back and have conversations like regular people, please come talk. So I hope that helps on that one. It takes patience. And in my area, in my family that I grew up in, I had to have a lot of it. So it is definitely something that you learn. So, and it works. I think it does work. I've had some great conversations with people I fundamentally disagree with. I knocked on somebody's door in Kent, surprisingly. I had a conversation with her on her front porch because she had a really good decorated front porch, had like alligator crossing and all this other stuff. It was really, really cool. I really liked her front porch. Knocked on the door, she opened it up, and I told her I was with, I had a conversation with her about her front porch first. This is important because I was like, this is all great. Where'd you get it? We had a nice conversation. She got it from like Florida or wherever she was, and it was really cool. And she's like, oh, what are you knocking on doors for? I was like, oh, I'm PJ with the Democratic Party. And she's like, oh, I think all Democrats are demons. And I was like, oh, that they're all demons, and they're like the demon rats. And I was like, oh. And she's like, but not you. I like you. I would vote for you.
It's like the people in Southwestern Ohio who hate all of the things that the Republicans do, but they still vote for Jim Jordan.
Exactly. Well, you can say that too, but that's just something. But this is just illuminating the fact that you have to have a personal connection with people in order. Like I came in, I treated her with respect. I treated her first off with the really, guys, it was a really cool front porch. I really liked it. I wish I had that style. I'm gonna have to work on it. But that's the way I started out. So I started off on the right foot automatically. I've knocked on people's doors where it was on football. Browns were playing, and I saw people inside watching. The first thing that they did when they opened the doors, like, "Hey, do you know the score?" And people are like, "Oh yeah, let me check for you." They look back, they give me the score. I'm like, that's not good, or something like that. But you start out on the right foot, and then you say, "Hey, I'm knocking on doors for so-and-so candidate," and they're more receptive. I had one gentleman that completely disagreed with me. And I asked him about the score when I first knocked on his door. And I walked throughout the rest of the neighborhood for another little bit. And this was at the beginning of the game. I asked him for the score. And by the end of the game, I was walking back to my truck. And he purposely stuck his head out the window and was like, "Hey, the score!" And I was like, "Thanks, man. I appreciate you. Have a good day." Things like that. That is so important to get that connection with people. I hope that my stories help you and help other people connect with people, connect with your community, connect with voters, and connect with people that aren't happy with the current system, that aren't happy with the way politics are going, that aren't happy with the way the state of things are. Because once you make that connection, you have a conversation and things can change. And that for the better. I think that's all I have.
Thank you for coming out on your
Thank you.
Oh, thank you guys.
I was just concerned, I was wondering, I'm not seeing a lot of young people out marching around and stuff. And I was just wondering, are there issues, it seems like maybe they're apathetic or maybe we're communicating wrong, or what are we doing wrong? And what are the issues that they may be concerned about that it just seems like
That's a very good question.
there's a void there.
That is a ridiculously good question. I'll tell you why. Because what I learned when I was little was my grandma and my grandfather were active members of the American Legion, and we did everything with the American Legion. When I learned the Pledge of Allegiance, my first thing I did was I called my grandma and recited it to her over the phone. That's where I got my start. So I knew that it was important to be an active citizen. It is incumbent on us to tell our nieces, tell our nephew. I have a nephew that is just going into middle school right now. That kid probably hears me say it 1,000,000 times on how important it is to be active in one's community. And here's why. Because if you don't, then other people make those decisions for you. And you can frame it that way. Because do you want other people to make a decision for you? Or do you want to make a decision for yourself? Do you want to have an active contribution in your community or not? And that's important. Once they connect that, more often than not, they'll actually say, okay, how do I register to vote? I've been harping on this for years, on the importance of voting, on the importance of being active in one's community, and how to go from there. And it is important. I got it from my grandparents. I got it from my family. If you have family members that are younger, if you have friends that are younger, it is incumbent on us, it is incumbent on everyone to say those stories so that way they can get that message. Because otherwise, they don't have that connection. They don't have that personal experience. They don't have anything that connects them with the process that makes this country great, this democracy, that representative democracy. Because other than that, then you're just ceding power over to those who would wield it on behalf of you. And would they do it correctly? Maybe yes, maybe no. You don't know. You're going to make a decision or not. So once you get that in there, I still talk to people downtown Kent. I asked a young lady if she would be happy to sign my petition for a school board candidate. And she said, "Oh, I don't do politics." And I said, "Okay. Well, politics is happy to make decisions on behalf of you. Have you ever thought of that?" And she's like, "Well, what do you mean?" We had a productive conversation. I don't know if I convinced her to register because I didn't get her to register. I had a sheet on me. I tried. But she's thinking about it now, I hope. But that is better coming from those you know than those you don't. I did not know her. My friends may have known her, but she does not know me personally. If a person that she respected and a person she loved went to her and said the same thing, I think it would be much more well received. So keep that in mind when you have that sort of thing. To get more people involved in the democratic process, you have to tell those personal stories. You have to tell the personal experiences. You have to tell people the result of your activism. Your actions speak louder than words. Words are great. They are fantastic, but your actions, that's where it's at. So, any other questions? Yes.
And just real quick, I do have a question. I'll talk to you afterwards because it's probably a long answer.
It's all good.
And a compound question. But Denise brought up a good point about getting out with people and talking to people. How do we get past gerrymandering? I think the only way we have to do it is to get out and talk to people, whether it's canvassing, backyard get-togethers, or your local bar, your local restaurant, whatever. When I first started canvassing, the first time I canvassed, I asked, "Is this really going to make a difference?" And the person said, one personal contact is equivalent to a person seeing an advertisement 6 or 7 times. And while they're spending billions of dollars on advertising, and we don't have that kind of money, our only option is to get out there, canvass, talk to people wherever you can, the grocery store or whatever. But that is how you overcome gerrymandering. Years ago, when the Democratic Party controlled the state of Ohio, the Republicans complained that they were doing it because it was gerrymandered by the Democrats. And how did they overcome that? They got out and they got Republicans elected, and here's where we are today. So we all have to get out and talk to people. That's the only way to do it. That's free.
Yep.
Words are free.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And as Joe would remind me, you talked about one personal contact. 19th Amendment was ratified by one vote in Tennessee by a young man who received a note from his mother to vote for it.
Yeah, I love that story.
That's the truth.
It is. It's 100% the truth, and it's fantastic. So one vote, that's all it takes. That's cool. God, see, this stuff's cool.
So where are Frank Capra and Mr. Smith when we need them?
Yeah.
Mr. Deeds, when we need them.
Well,
Frank Capra, we need more of him.
I'm hoping something comes by soon because.
But I mean, that's what I was thinking when you talk about Sherrod Brown and Tim Lyon and Kathleen Clyde. I mean, they've been through those bloody battles, and I'm sure they're sick and tired of it, even though they're still active, as a supportive position. We need some more young people to stand up for young people's values and make young people take notice and vote.
I agree.
I mean, even though Portage County had like 47% turnout in the last election, The national average is like 24%. It's disgusting.
I think we're not hitting a lot of young people's platforms.
Yeah. You have TikTok, YouTube Shorts now. Statistically, we need to get on those platforms. Instagram, the short bursts of information that people can absorb quickly because they're working and they don't have time. A lot of people just don't have time to stay connected. Like my mother, for example, just does not. So she when she watches the news, it's the weather. She'll turn it off. And that's it. She's like, I ain't got time for it. And to be fair, like she's exhausted at the end of the workday. Like, don't blame her. So, I believe we're over on our time. Yeah.
No, we reserved from 2 to 4. So, but
Okay.
I just wanted to say thank you very much, PJ, for coming to talk to us. And we really appreciate this. You know, it's great. We had up to 5 people watching as they're streaming.
I'm okay.
This is our 4th presentation with the club at this point.
Yeah.
So, and it didn't even exist back in March.
Hey,
So-
big. I think we should give a round of applause to
No,
these
no,
guys.
no.
Yes, I think so. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate you being willing. Just so the announcement, I guess I'll get on camera. I don't like this, but so our next one is in late September, and we are going to have a veteran come and speak to us about veteran issues and how the current cuts are affecting them. His name is Tim Hauser. He is a very prominent veterans advocate who actually was part of the group that got the PACT Act passed, and he actually spoke to Dave Joyce, our lovely congressman, and convinced him to vote for it. So this veteran's a really good man for this. So, and then after that, we're going to do in October, we're going to be doing health information, like a health fair, talking about how are the cuts happening, how do we get, we're trying to go and get resources for people, like how do we keep a safety net, even though we're losing things at our governmental level. So we're going to work multi-prongs. First part is going to be let's get our politicians in line with our values. The second part is let's take care of our communities despite this. So, all right. Thank you again so much and have a great day.
Personal exercise.
I won't forget.
I'm so sorry.